to give you a free Mac with every iPod because the margins are so huge. What is the difference there? One company recognized the change in the world, one company recognized the trend, one company comprehended what people really wanted, and one company delivered what they were looking for. The other company just sat comfortably without thinking about it, without taking a bigger view, and said, people will never stop buying CDs. People stop buying CDs. So I use this example because if the music industry was so smart, why didn't they invent the iPod? Isn't that crazy, you guys, that the industry that stands to lose or gain the most didn't even think of the idea. Some other industry had to come up with the idea of iPods and MP3 players. Napster, the first distribution company, was one guy, a 19-year-old kid, not a record label. Okay, so I just want you to sort of get that point there. It's all about innovating, and innovating is all about the way that you think about the world around you. Step away from your business, take a broader view, and then come back to your business, and you'll be able to deliver much more effectively. So I always try to do that. We do that in all our companies with something that we call blue sky thinking. And you know, they've been asking me to do this for a long time, to write a book on innovation, which I never got around to. I think I've written like 7 sentences now. But this is the title of it. It's called Wouldn't It Be Cool If? Because the best way to innovate and to come up with new ideas is, well, let me tell you the way not to do it. The way not to do it is to come up to any industry, whether it's the advertising industry or the music industry, look at the industry, how it works today, and say, how can I make this industry better? If you do that, let's say you've been in an industry for 10 years, guess what you're going to create? You're going to create advertising 11.0. You're going to look at the current industry with all its inherent, whatever, problems and legacies, and you're going to slightly improve it. The way I would suggest is, what if you pretended that your industry never existed and you were starting it from scratch? So you lose gravity and you start up here. And that's how we do this Wouldn't It Be Cool If? We just pretend there were no rules, there were no companies, there was no industry. Now what you're going to suggest up here can't be done. It's not feasible, it's not economical, whatever. So what you do is you slowly modify this, this brand new idea into something that's workable. So when you started here, you got to here. When you started here, even though you couldn't do what you wanted to do, you wound up way ahead. So I know that was kind of soft, but what I'm trying to say is people that look at industries completely new and take a fresh view and pretend that none of those companies exist and wipe all, every once in a while just do that. Start your industry over in your mind, you're creating it from scratch, what would you do? And it'll be amazing. 99% of the things you think of you can't do in that industry. There's a good reason that they haven't been done, but that one will probably be your billion-dollar idea. I think that's what innovators do, is they start over again all the time and look at it fresh, and they take that and blend it with what's going on in the world around them since yesterday, because the world changes so fast, and they come up with something that nobody else thought of, and they get there first. That's how our idea came about. This idea came about from, so I'm just going to give you an example of how we created Priceline. We created this idea by a series of little data points. I actually saw a thing on TV one day, it was Peter Jennings or some news guy, that was talking about the fact that every day 600,000 empty airline seats fly around the country. And that was just a data point, didn't really mean anything to me then, but there's a note, like one of those little notes there right now. There's 600,000 seats flying around empty every day, right? And then you're looking over here at another data point, which at that time was the growth of broadband. People can get on, America's connected now. There's a new data point. Then you look at a little thing about consumer trends, where travel is one of the first things that people want to be able to do on the internet, right? So you start connecting all these dots, and literally one day we woke up and said, remember what I told you to ask, what can I do today that I couldn't do yesterday? Today I could actually create a company that enables people to name their own price for an airline ticket and grab one of those empty seats. We had been sort of narrowing in an idea by thinking of a lot of things going on at once, and it led to the actual launch of a company that came from a lot of different pieces. And think about, remember I said before, the big companies don't rule the world anymore? Look at these examples. I mean, Google was 2 students, they were grad students, I think, right, at the time. 2 grad students that created a company, okay? In a short period of time, they didn't just create a company, they created a verb, all right? We Google things now. These guys are already a verb. And I just want to give you an idea of how the world values innovation. These people changed the way we live. It was not a big company. It was not a big agency. It was 2 of us in this room that had an idea. Look at this. This blows me away. This is the market value. The market value of Google is $157 billion last week. The market value of Ford Motor, which we were raised to believe were the big companies that rule the world, $24 billion. Okay? 157 versus 24. This thing is worth many times what Ford Motor Company is worth. And who created it? Two grad students with an idea because they were a little bit in tune with how the world worked and what people wanted to do. What's the point of that? You could be next. What else have we seen? David was talking about this before. Were these companies that changed the way we operate? Were they created by big corporations? No. They were created by a couple of people in this room that woke up one morning and say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this? And they just went out and tried it. They weren't smarter than you. They weren't better than you. They didn't start with any money either. They just paid attention. And they got up off the couch one day and said, let's give this a shot. Facebook's an interesting example. Oh no, I was going to say, sorry, YouTube is an interesting example. Because at that time, I was doing the stuff with in the movie and the television business. And so I was meeting with a lot of the TV and the studio heads. And people were saying, hey, do you think people ever watch stuff? What about two-minute videos on the internet? And the TV executive said, no one's going to watch a 2-minute video on the internet. They watch 30-minute shows on television. Well, sure they do if that's all you feed them, right? If that's all you give them. The television industry stood to gain or lose the most from YouTube and sort of the online video nation, and they didn't come up with it. I actually, one of the investors in my current company is the president of NBC. And the other day, I was actually talking to the guy, and he's in a huge panic because network television is dying. Okay, they're losing it to the electronic age. They're losing it to things that they never saw before. They're losing it to internet-created content that you will soon be able to download direct to your TiVo, so you don't have to watch it on your computer. You can still watch it in your living room. The only edge they had over us was you don't really want to watch your favorite shows on your computer. You still want to watch them on your big screen with your good sound. Well, guess what? When I can click on the internet and say, download this to my living room, and it goes directly to my DVR box on my big TV, who needs NBC anymore? I'll pick the show I want to watch, and he might have created it, for all I know. They missed this whole thing coming. The networks are dying, and they're in panic. You know why? They didn't innovate, they didn't look around, and they didn't think of a world bigger than them. So I'll give you, I just threw our example up here because I happened to look at it the other day. So our little company was a handful of people on a website. We created it from scratch, starting on a card table, and this is last week as well. Last week, this little website we started from scratch, Priceline, was worth $7 billion. I picked a little local company called United Airlines. United Airlines, where did theirs go? United is at $1.3 billion. So our little website idea started by a couple of people in a card table, is now the market value is at a $7 billion company. All of United Airlines, we have a few hundred people on the website. They have 70, whatever it is, 70,000 employees, hundreds of airplanes in 200 cities, and they're valued at $1.3 billion. Could anybody in this room create the next big thing? Absolutely. It's happening all around us all the time now. So what is the face of the new America? You're looking at it, it's you guys. We are the game changers now, right? It's me and you. People like us are changing the fabric of society. We now Google it and tweet each other. These didn't even exist a few years ago. They were created by people like you and valued at huge amounts of money. I think it's simple, the formula for the people that win. They observe the world around them. They analyze and stare at all those data points. Then they innovate. They say, what do I make of all this stuff that's going on in the world? And 3 days in a row, nothing. And the fourth day, you say, oh my God, I see a picture in the dots. And I connect all those dots, I innovate. And then here's an important thing that the tower records of the world didn't do, adjust. Constantly, I told you a few minutes ago, constantly reinvent yourself and reinvent your business, even when it's going well, right? It was going well for tower records. Hey, it was going well for Sears for a long time, right? They didn't really pay attention to the targets of the world. Reinvent yourself and adjust. Every once in a while, even if you're successful, assume that the world's going to change tomorrow and your path to success just went left, and keep looking at it again. Validate your idea. This is kind of an interesting one here that I want to talk to you about for a second. It's really interesting because some of you in this room might have an idea for a company, or you might even have an idea, let's say you're working on an ad campaign and you've got a brilliant idea for how to market a product, right? And you tell your best friend, you tell your father, you tell your mother, you tell your sister, and every one of them just sort of, you think it's the greatest idea ever, and it's dead silence in the room. You know what? Maybe they're not the buyer. Why are you asking them? When my friend Chris had this little idea for this singing group, you should have seen what they went through. They go to the record label, right? And it's middle-aged male executives, these record labels. And the guy, every major record label said, let me get this straight, kid. You and your little friend Justin here are going to wear sparkly pants, you can't play instruments, you're going to twirl in circles and sing, and they're like, next.